I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. For today's episode, we are discussing spicy scenes.
Spicy.
Yays and nays, according to us. But before we get into all of that, Deb, will you please share just a little bit about our nerdiest cocktail?
Sure. And it's not just according to us, by the way. We have an Instagram channel, and we ask people their opinions. So
according to us and you, dear listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so even though our drink is themed after our read-along of Crescent City this week, this drink is called The Drop, which is also appropriate for our Spicy Scenes nerdiest topic today, since we're talking about panty-dropping moves later in this episode.
I see what you did there.
Right. The recipe is on Instagram.com, Our Nerdiest Thing, or at OurNerdiestThing.com. It's quite delicioso.
Thank you so much, Deb. I still want to keep going. Nerd alert. Nerd alert.
We need to just have our producer make us a sound. All right, sexual butler.
Well, we do have some nerdy news. I have a couple of things I'll just go ahead and share. Severance of the Sorcerer by Kate Gately, friend of the podcast. That is book 3 of her The Lost Wells trilogy. That came out last week when this is being released, March 19th. So be sure and check that out. Her first 2 books are award winners from Canadian Book Club Best, I think is what it is.
I think so.
Canadian Book Club winners for sci-fi and fantasy.
Plus,
so
she's just real fucking awesome.
She really is.
Yeah.
She really is.
It's amazing.
And if you're going to a Polycon, she's going to be there. I'll be there as her PA, which I'm super thrilled about.
Yeah, last week her interview, it was at the tail end of our Nerdiest Thing episode from March 19th. So be sure and go listen to that if you've not already.
We love you, Kate.
We do. Shout out to Kate. And then kind of a bummer, but hopefully not really that much of a bummer. Just a release date change for Jennifer L. Armentrout's upcoming Born of Blood and Ash, which is the final book in the Flesh and Fire series, which is the prequel series / companion series to the From Blood and Ash series.
We'll post an infographic.
Yeah, right. It was originally supposed to come out in May, but now it will be coming out August 14th of 2024, which I think is just because it's such a big book, honestly. Like, it just took a lot longer.
Quite honestly, like, I would rather her take her time.
Me too.
And it be, the best that she wants to put out there than...
Yeah, me too.
For her to feel rushed.
She has even said that, she spent a year writing From Blood and Ash. And then the 10 years before that, she had written 60 books.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so I would much rather her take her time because it definitely shows in her work when she does so. I only have one piece of nerdy news. And there is a book that is coming out called The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste. And the blurb is, when a love potion maker loses her mother, she's offered vengeance against her mother's killer if she brews potions to enslaved, corrupt politicians.
Oh.
I love it when somebody comes up with something I've never heard.
I know,
that is
right?
so cool.
It's getting tons of buzz. I'm super excited to read it. And also, is this girl real? I want to hang out with her. But the cool thing is like when you brew love potions, it has like negative effects on the maker.
Ooh.
And so she's trying to hide the effects because it's illegal to brew them. And so I just like that she becomes like this vigilante witch, which is kind of cool.
So
That's a really unique idea.
I love that.
And I think it's YA, so it's not going to be too messy for people that don't like way over the top books.
It doesn't get too crazy.
Too crazy.
Well, awesome.
So I have a couple of things as well, switching from fantasy to romance, actually, which I guess will lead us right into our sexy time. So first of all, the book Just My Luck by Rebecca Rennick. It came out on March 5th. And it's about an unlucky girl who goes to Ireland to find the luck of the Irish and meets a sexy MMA fighter who is lucky in everything but love.
Ooh.
I just thought...
I don't think there's much luck in MMA. There's biting, scratching, and tackling.
Yeah.
Well, this is part of her Gummy Bear Orgy series, which my kids thought was hysterical.
Book you read?
So I read Pinky Promise earlier this year, and these books are just so fun and sexy. And the coolest part is you can order versions that are printed in their color. So like this one will be printed in green. The Pinky Promise was printed in pink.
Like pink paper?
Fun.
Can you explain What the gummy bear?
The gummy
orgies?
bear orgy series.
Okay.
They're very colorful. So like Just My Luck is all green. Like the color of the color of the cover is green.
Yeah.
And then the pink one is, and so I have the ones that actually have the font written in the color.
Is that just why it's called gummy bears? Just because of like?
I think it's because they're all based on a color. So there's another one that was.
So there's no orgies?
Well, I mean, there's
She
a
didn't
lot
say
of
that.
sex. I haven't hit an orgy yet, so who knows?
Oh.
Maybe the last book will be everybody comes together for a big old orgy.
The multiverse crossover.
You're that pink girl. You're the Irish guy.
I've never heard, I don't think, the title of this series, so I was very thrown off for a moment, and I expect maybe some of our listeners were.
She always includes some not safe for work art in like her covers as well, or like the inside cover. And I just love this books. They're just really really cool. And
it's on the inside of the cover,
yes.
so you can have your book with you,
yes, and not be like, hey, look what I'm reading.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's coming up, and I don't know what her next color will be. It'll be a surprise, I guess.
Ooh, orange.
No, orange was
orange.
She has an orange one.
Oh, yeah. I would be like,
aren't you glad to meet my penis?
Yes, exactly. Orangey glad I took my pants off.
I think the orange one was called her favorite jack-o'-lantern. I haven't read that one yet, but I have it. So anyway, the next one, you're gonna not be surprised at all why I'm interested in this one. It's called Strange Love, and it's by Stephanie Blay. It came out on March 22nd. So this one's a hockey romance, but it's set.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
It's set in the 80s.
Oh,
and it has
historical fiction.
Believe it or not, this would not be historical fiction. I like researched this, right?
Did you?
So like, it is considered historical fiction if the events in it are part of history. So
there's some shit that happened in the 80s. My daughter's learning about the Cold War right now.
But it has to be part of the storyline. Like, I don't think this is going to be about the Cold War.
Yeah.
It's going to be about a lot of mustaches and guys that don't landscape.
And mullets. So it is a fake dating and opposites attract, which are two of my favorite tropes.
I like those too.
Oh, and yes, I did. So here's a word on historical fiction. I did. This one is
last week when we were like, the 80s is not historical fiction.
So apparently this is a highly debated subject, and even among historical fiction readers and writers, because really historical is all relative to when you're born. So like 50 years ago for me is a time when I didn't really experience living in the area, but to my mom, it's her decade. Right.
Yeah.
So a better indication is that whatever time period is set, that setting and events are crucial to the plot. So like I said, it's something that is part of the storyline.
So if you wrote about 9/11, would that technically be historical fiction?
I was just thinking the same thing about the 2009.
As part of its, as long as it's part of what
the plot
moves the plot along. So like if it's just two people who were having sex and the Twin Towers went down in the background, but if they were involved in the, if one of them was a firefighter and he was doing that kind of stuff. So
that's interesting. Anyway. That does help clarify.
Yeah.
That gives it some clear framework.
Yes.
So that's a good, I would not have ever thought about though, like historical fiction depends on how old you are.
Yeah.
Right. Like what you would consider to be history.
Yeah. And I guess if someone if someone asks if I read historical fiction, typically my answer is no, because I think of it as older than 1960.
Right.
Right.
I think of it as older than that. I think period pieces.
Yeah.
There's not electricity. But that's wrong.
They did have that in 1960, Whitney.
Oh, well, allegedly. That was a long time ago.
And some of those talking tube boxes.
The talkies. Well, all those books that you guys were describing sound interesting and different. I like them. Add it to your list, everybody. Yes. The never-ending list.
Whitney, we expect you to read those.
All of them.
Eventually, I will. So let's get into the nerdy and dirty, talking about all of our nerdy things, starting with what we're reading.
I think I probably know what you're reading, Whitney, but what are you reading?
I have read almost all of Tessa Bailey's books since the last time we were here.
What's been your favorite?
Unfortunately Yours is my favorite for sure. But I've read Unfortunately Yours, It Happened One Summer, and Hook, Line, and Sinker, and Chase Me. And I still have the other two Chase Me series books that I'm waiting on from the library that I just haven't gotten yet. So
I got Unfortunately Yours through NetGalley as an ARC, not knowing it had a book in front of it. So for the first half, I was very confused. And I was like, this is not Tessa Bailey writing. Why are there so many plot holes and people she's referencing I've never heard about? So I stopped
and read Secretly
Yours. But it really dampened how I felt about the book.
Yeah. I can see that. I could see how that might happen. Yeah.
Very good spicy scenes.
There really are.
Unfortunately Yours.
Yeah, Unfortunately Yours. I'm going to talk a little bit about it later as I convince you to try to read it. But that has definitely been my favorite so far. Chase Me was just like fine. I think if it was too short, it went by too quickly for me, but they're all good. And I feel like I've talked at length about Tessa Bailey and why I like her, but just listen to me, people, and read her books. So.
I think, too, if you've not ever really read a rom-com, It Happened One Summer is a great place to start.
It's funny, and it's got a lot of heart and some real... I mean, I feel like I felt every emotion possible reading that book, because there's one scene in particular, I won't give any spoilers, but there's one scene in particular where the main female character does something, and you, like, want to die on her behalf. Like, you are so
I love
freaking embarrassed.
When you have secondhand embarrassment for the character.
Gosh, like I think I literally was like, no, out loud. Like it was.
We were crafting at our friend Holly's house, and I was trying to hide the fact that I was crying listening to the audio.
Oh my gosh.
Because she does make you feel a lot. But they're still funny and witty and
she writes an HEA. So, you
Those
can go through.
Like you can go through all the emotions and
it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to end the book being happy. But yeah, I've really enjoyed her books a lot.
Whitney, my husband, this weekend asked me why a book has to have a happily ever after for you to give it 5 stars.
Me? Yeah. Like me specifically?
Because I was talking about how that's not important to me, right? Because we're talking about Red Queen.
Yeah. I can't even talk about it.
I'm going to, spoiler alert, because I just want to say what it is. But those books are old, so spoiler alert for Red Queen. But at the end, I think it's a happy ending because she chooses herself. Neither of the guys are good for her. And I know you vehemently disagree with that.
Well, isn't she also like 17 or something? Like she's really young, isn't she?
They all are.
Well, not all of these books are teenagers, but I just, it's the escapism. Like that's why I read, right? Like I want to escape from stress, and to read a story where people are like unhappy and sad at the end is usually, I do have a caveat for this, but it's usually something I'm going to hate. The only exception that I have ever experienced with that is Elle Mitchell's books. And that's because I trust that she's going to give us like a bonus chapter or like a bonus POV, or there's going to be another book coming or something that will explain things, or it's not over yet. But she's the only writer that I've ever enjoyed, not HEA.
I was going to say, I think everybody's happily ever after is different too, because I know
that's true,
you all hate pregnancies. They don't bother me.
Babies aren't sexy.
I mean, true. But a man taking care of the baby without being asked, sexy.
No.
See, and again, that's because we have different.
Yeah.
That's just our different
strokes for different folks.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I'm reading.
Deb, what are you reading?
Well, I just actually last night finished Our Immortal Hearts by Lara Buckheit. It was her arc. It's her new vampire series. It was quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
And she just writes really fun characters, and they're all sex positive, and she has some good spice in this book. That was one thing we had asked her about when we read A Realm of Ash and Shadow. We're like, where's the sex?
Show me your wiener.
And in this one, she does. There were a couple times where I was like, Lara.
I was like, blushing.
You go, girl.
Put it on my list.
It comes out $3.19, and then if you're going to Imaginarium, you can actually pre-order glitter pink sprayed edges, which I did.
Oh, that's the book that she's. Oh,
yes.
Well, sign me up. Say less.
You just said sprayed edges.
Pink glitter, yes, please.
Yep. Yeah. What about you, Min?
Well, first I had to DNF Factory Girls. It was just not for me. It was definitely historical fiction.
Is it the one that both of you were reading?
No. This is the one that was set in the 90s in Ireland. It wasn't enough set in the 90s for me. It was very much Irish Catholics versus Protestants
Yeah.
and it just wasn't what I was expecting. I don't mind that at all, but that was all it was about.
That's not what you wanted.
The Lisa
Yeah.
Frank Trapper Keeper.
Yes. So now I'm tackling my ARC list. I also just finished Our Immortal Hearts by Lara Buckheit. I just love her fantasy worlds. There's always something just a little different about them. And Deb and I were actually talking about this. I like that she's kind of like fantasy light. Like sometimes I just need a fantasy book that doesn't have a lot of extra world building and like a huge commitment to get into the world. And I definitely get into her world without it being so overly described, I guess.
And I have a million questions I want to ask her about that world because I would say I'm definitely the high fantasy reader of the group. Like I could read, J.R.R. Tolkien and be happy.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But especially if you're someone who's new to paranormal romance or fantasy books, she'd be a great person to start with.
Well,
she is.
Yeah, definitely. And I love too in this one that she has a social structure that I've never really read before in a I'm sure sometimes it's out there, but there's this like hierarchy, not really a hierarchy, but it's like a panel of people that they're like supremes that lead these different factions, and they're all different creatures. So like werewolves, vampires, nymphs, sirens. So it's like different ones
But there's a lot of classism and racism within that too.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just it interests me, and I'm ready to read more. So now I'm reading Puck Pact by Kristen Granada, another friend of the podcast, so we love her. And it's a hockey marriage of convenience romance, and it's part of a 3-book series, but it can be read as a standalone, which is nice.
Oh,
the thing about Kristen too is she and her wife have a intimate oil CBD company, and I think that's super duper cool.
So cool.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So usually when you order from her, you get a little like sample.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And you're like, ooh.
Add it to your list, everybody.
Or just go support that business.
Right.
Yes,
well, sure. Yeah. Well, awesome. That's what we're reading, but we're also watching things. I'm excited about mine.
I'm
Me
not
too.
watching anything.
Really? That surprises me.
So I've been reading around the clock. I was telling you all before we turned on the microphone that I'm trying to catch up on my ARC so that when I go on spring break with my kids, I can read unhinged smut.
For what you want to
Whatever
read.
you
I
want.
have like 3 physical books on my shelf that I've had on there forever that I want to go read some unhinged shit at the beach. But I'm feeling really guilty about some of these ARCs, like not having them done yet. And so I actually...
life happens.
Life has been, as you all know, kind of crazy for me the last few weeks. And so I actually dropped off to like permanent ARC teams this week just because I don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
And, like they're both people I'm like close with. So I'm like, I'll let you know next time I see if I can actually do it. But I can't handle the pressure right now of like always needing to be available for them. So I'm just reading ARCs. I'm not watching anything.
Well, maybe we'll have a couple of things that you may want to start when you feel like you have to.
When I'm done with my unhinged smut.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I'm really excited about.
Well, Mindy, what are you watching? You go first.
So I finished One Day on Netflix, and it is based on a book by David Nichols, and it totally gutted me.
Is it a movie or a series?
It's a series.
Okay.
And it follows... Okay, so first of all, there was a movie in like the early 2000s, and it had Anne Hathaway.
I was just about to say, didn't they do that?
And
okay.
it was not.
So it is the same
It wasn't
thing.
super well received, and it wasn't great.
That was before she came into her time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So this one, it follows Dexter and Emma through the years by examining their friendship and relationship on the same day each year. So like it starts in the 80s and it ends in, I want to say, the late 90s.
Is it historical fiction?
It is not really historical fiction. No, it's really more about their relationship, and he's very immature and he has some growing to do. And she, it's sort of a will they or won't they? And you kind of watch how it develops through that one single day each year. It's very powerful and moving. And the actor that plays Dexter, his name is Leo Woodall, and he's just brilliant. He's also in White Lotus, if you watch that.
Okay.
I don't, but like somebody
I know
in
of it, yeah.
Unfortunately, you probably won't like it because it's not really...
I don't watch shit that makes me feel stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a happy ending, but it did make me cry. So...
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I was like, that's.
I'll just enjoy from afar.
But what Whitney
It was
watches
fantastic.
is very different, though.
That's true.
Because you love like the crazy serial killer documentaries. Those do not have HEAs, Whitney.
Well, sometimes they do. If people survive their encounters.
The 20 people before that did not.
Yeah.
There's a show called I Survived, actually, that some of the like coolest stories.
No, I do not want to watch that. That's
they're traumatized
scary.
for life, but they didn't die.
This is why when your husband's out of town, you're scared to sleep alone.
I don't know why I can't fall asleep until 2. I'm watching like Cold Case Files.
Whereas I'm watching Supernatural and I'm like, good night, Dean. Good night, Sam.
Well, you know, I do have a true crime.
How did we know?
Okay, for the record, I didn't even know that.
It is a true crime
that
show.
That's hilarious.
It's also on Netflix, but my Netflix show is called American Nightmare. No, but really, I highly recommend it because, well, I don't want to say too much about it because I think that the storytelling is so well done. It's only 3 or 4 episode miniseries. I think it's actually 3 episodes, but
Is it about like someone we know?
no,
Okay.
It is something that I had not ever heard of, but I realized that it's because it happened. It was either 2014 or 2015. So I either had an infant or a 1-year-old. So I'm like, okay, well, this is why I've never heard of this then. But basically the premise, it is a 100% true story. The premise is a woman is kidnapped from her home in the middle of the night. And so it's a missing persons case, and it's a where is this person and what happened to her. And I know it sounds really scary. It is the craziest story
terrifying.
I have ever heard in my life. And you watch it and you think you know what's up and what's going on, especially if you're a true crime person like me. You know, an adult woman gets kidnapped, like, okay, well, her husband killed her. Like, that's how it goes, right? And so that's where we start the story of like, okay, so here's what happened and here's where the police went immediately. Of course, this is what they thought. And just like, it goes from there, and it's crazy.
Did she survive?
I don't want to say anything.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to say too much.
I'm never going to watch it.
Yeah, I'll tell you more about it after. But
Okay.
if you like true crime, definitely check it out. It's short. It's a few hours of your life, and it's really, really compelling.
Except for now, I'm going to sleep with the light on.
Right. Because you're kidnapping me. So I will say I can listen to true crime. I can't
Yeah.
watch true crime because I'm a visual person, right?
Yeah.
And but I really only like true crime podcasts where they convict someone. So like Up and Vanished and In Your Own Backyard.
You want them to
Right.
get justice.
I do, yeah.
Well-
but in Up and Vanished, even when they're explaining how she actually died, and they're like, it's the recording of the guy talking about it, I had to skip the episode because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't need to have that in my mind.
Well, you might like what I'm listening to, but then again, maybe you won't.
What are you listening to?
I'm listening to a new To Me podcast. I think it's a new podcast in general, but it's called 3, and it is about the murder of a teenage girl, and you know from the beginning like what happened to her, but it kind of goes through the whole story. And the story is about this girl, and her 2 best friends killed her, and you know that the whole time. But it's also kind of about social media and the role that it played in these girls' like
because
psyche. It's really interesting.
It's getting promoted by Ashley Flowers right
Yes,
now, right?
yeah, she
So,
does some of the ad reading.
Actually, I was listening to Crime Junkie, and then that was the next episode, and I hadn't turned it off yet, and I started listening to it, and I was like, oh, this is really kind of interesting.
It is really, really interesting because, you know, it's not a mystery, right? Like, you know, from the beginning what has happened, and they just kind of unfold everything the way that it happened. But they are really focusing on these girls' social media posts, specifically Twitter. And it's just very interesting. Apparently the podcast came from a really long article in Elle magazine, I want to say. They talked about it in the first episode, but they did this really big article about this girl's murder and her friends and social media with teenagers and how it affects.
All this is going to make me want to do is make my daughter not be
on
right.
it. Yeah, it's really interesting. But so another true crime thing. There's a theme in my life right now.
Shocker.
Yeah. But also Tessa Bailey books, so you know,
Yeah.
it balances out.
there you go.
She typically does not have murder in her
No.
books.
No, not usually. Not so far, anyway.
Right, yeah. I think some fish died in one of them.
Maybe.
I'm reading about hockey, so of course I'm listening to hockey. So I'm going through the Pucked series on Audible, and I'm on the second one right now. Actually, I skipped the second one to read the third one because that's my favorite, and then I went back to the second one. So I'm reading Pucked Up by Helena Hunting.
Nice.
Awesome.
It's the Yeti story. Remember I told you that she calls him the Yeti because he's hairy.
The Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
The Travis Kelce
He
type.
does manscape though. And
All
then-
right.
yeah.
I'd be okay with that. I
And
just
he's-
don't want
and
to have
he's
to
blonde.
brush anything. Like,
And he's blonde, so it's not as like,
right.
it's
not as
Bigfoot.
Sasquatchy.
Yeah.
It's like the snowman. What's he called? The
Abominable.
Abominable
I always
snowman.
want to say the abominable, but that's not.
I know.
that's
I think that's what I just said. Actually,
it's not abdominal.
It's
the
abominable.
abominable.
The bad
Abominable.
snowman.
The
big, hairy, white
that one.
snowman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Claymation dude.
Yeah.
Well, I'm currently listening. We have book club this weekend, and I'm listening to The Plot. It was our friend Holly's pick. She's wanted to read it forever. I was super into it at the beginning, but it's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
So then I'm also listening to Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. I really, really, really loved the first book in this series, and it follows this really nerdy scholar who is trying to find like Fae texts and stuff like that. And so she's very socially awkward, and one of these king of the Fae like fall in love with her, and
cool.
it's really, really cute for nerdy girls. You'd be like, yep, that's how I would be in Fairyland.
That sounds like something I would like.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. What are you giggling about over there, Whitney?
I'm just. You said Faye texts, and my mind went to like cell phone text messages, and then I realized that that's
Books.
not what you mean.
Books, Whitney.
Oh my goodness.
But
I want to see what Resand would text.
I mean,
Dick pics.
dick pics to
Yeah.
Feyre. I feel
100%.
Well, to finish out our nerdy and dirty segment, what are we loving? What are you guys loving right now?
Well, I took my husband to Atlanta this weekend. He has always dreamt of seeing MXPX, and they were playing there. It's about 6 hours from us, so we drove down. And of course, the next day we went bookstore hopping because my husband loves books like I do as well. And I visited Eagle Eye Bookshop, and on their door they said Scarlett St. Clair was coming. So my husband was like, "Look, babe." And so this woman named Preet started talking to me, and she's like, "Oh, we just had Tessa Bailey in," and like she was telling me how they do all these signings in
That's
their
cool.
shop. But then she told me she plans the Love Y'all Fest down there. And so I was talking to her about the podcast. She was super sweet. So unfortunately, this event is the week between Readers Take Denver and Romanticon next year. So I'm like, oh, I can't do 3 in a row. But I did, if you ever listen to this, I did tell her, I was like, we want to like get involved. That's close to us. And
Yeah, that would be
it's
great.
a romance con, but they just had their first one last year, and it was wildly successful. So
That's great.
It's put on by 3 independent booksellers, which I thought was kind of cool.
That is really
awesome.
cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so Preet at Eagle Eye Bookshop. Shout out.
Yeah. Congratulations to Love Y'all. Love Y'all.
Love
That's
Y'all
the name of
Fest.
cool.
Very cool.
Awesome. What about you, Mindy?
Mine is super nerdy, as it should be. I got a new Ott light, and it's like a craft light, and it's portable and rechargeable, and it's just great for like
Noise.
crafting
We're
weekends.
fawning over it.
I know. Everybody was like, "Give me the link to that." It's adorable. Now the only problem is it's got an alarm on. I did figure out how to turn off the alarm. It would go off at like noon every day, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. So I did figure out how to turn that off. But it's just fantastic I love to cross stitch, and I have progressive glasses, so like I can't see anything without my glasses. So it was really nice to have a really direct light on what I was doing, and it was not overpowering, and plus it's like you fold it up, it's literally looks like a curling iron, right? Like it's super small and travels well.
I told you the only thing that stresses me out about it is it has a clock on.
Yeah, it does.
And
I just don't look at that part.
I purposely don't look at the clock when I'm in
Yeah.
my studio.
Maybe I'll just tape over that.
Maybe. Hey, super expensive light. Here's some painter's tape.
It really was pretty affordable. I think it was under $30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Usually those are kind of expensive.
Yeah.
Whitney, I heard that you have a book you want to convince us to read.
I do.
I've already read it. You have to convince Mindy, man.
Did you tell us what you're loving?
I didn't.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just am so excited.
It's quick. It's my 10-year-old's reading Harry Potter.
Oh, I
Oh
love
my
He's on book
God.
4. I'm really excited
I
about
don't
it.
think I knew that he liked to read.
I didn't either.
Oh my gosh, he loves to read.
That's awesome.
At least
Really?
right now, he loves to read. He reads all the time, and it's so great. But yeah, he's reading Harry Potter. He's at pretty still the beginning of book 4, which spends forever at the Quidditch World Cup.
Right.
He's like, they just started running. Like when the Death
Like,
Eaters
we'll
show up.
see you in 10 chapters.
Yeah. But yeah, he's reading them and he's really enjoying them. And we are watching the movies. He's not going to watch all the movies because he can't. He'll find them too creepy.
That's what we did with Sadie too.
Yeah.
She didn't watch the final one until she was like 14.
Yeah. I'm gonna let him finish book 4. We've watched the first 3 movies, and he's gonna decide when he finishes the book if he wants to watch movie 4, because
that's where it starts to turn pretty dark.
He's a young
Goblet
10.
of Fire, right?
Yeah.
Or Prisoner of Azkaban. Which one?
Goblet
of Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People die in that one.
Yeah. He's a young 10, and he's like, I don't know. He thought that, I'm trying to remember book 2. So Chamber of Secrets, when he was reading the scene about Harry fighting the basilisk at the end, he was like, I don't know if I want to watch that in the movie. And I was like, okay. So I went and watched it, and I told him exactly, like, this is what it shows and this is what it doesn't, whatever.
Pretty cheesy.
It is. And so I told him, like, this is what it looks like and this is what they show you. And he was like, oh, I was picturing Harry, stabbing him in the eye and just blood gushing out and just blood everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, he described something really horrifying. Yes. And I was like, no. That's not what the movies are.
I'm one of those that I really don't like seeing the monster in the movie because it's almost always worse than it looks.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, it's way worse.
Your imagination is
so
worse.
when I see something like the basilisk and that, now granted, that's not when the budget was super high for those movies.
Yeah.
And plus it was in the early 2000s or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have lived my whole life without seeing that and just hearing it hiss, and it would have been way scarier.
Oh, I agree. 100%.
True.
But yeah, I've been loving that. Sometimes he'll be like, will you read me this chapter out loud, Mom? I'm like, yes, I will. It's really fun. So yay.
That's
Shout
amazing.
out to my 10-year-old. But I do have a book to convince you of, and it is Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. You mentioned, Deb, earlier, it's the follow-up to Secretly Yours.
Yes, please read that book.
Yeah, you should definitely. I think technically it might say you can read it as a standalone, but I wouldn't.
Yeah.
It is a classic Tessa Bailey book with a smart and strong female main character partnered with a sweet and kind and like kind of messed up male main character who is really obsessed with her, and I love that. The personalities of your main characters, Natalie and August, they go so well together. They have great chemistry. They have really good humor, and the way that they accept each other for who they are, and they're unapologetically supportive of each other. I just really love that. And the spice is spicy.
It is. It's really good.
Really good.
I will say, though, there is a scene in Secretly Yours where I'm like, well, hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah.
I might talk about it later in our nerdiest topic.
Yeah. If you want to giggle and kick your feet while you read something, read Tessa Bailey.
But her characters are multi-dimensional too, especially in that book. He has a lot going on.
He does have a lot going on. Yeah. So read that book. And that leads us right into our nerdiest topic for today, spicy scenes. Yay and nay.
Or hell no.
Some of mine are.
I'm on some of mine are hell no's.
Hell no. So let's start with yays. What are your spicy scene yays? But you have to say it like that. Yays!
I have 3.
Go for it.
I don't know how many you guys have in each category, but I had
72.
We'll be here all night, folks. So my number 1 for me is making her orgasm while her clothes are still on.
Ooh.
I think that is really sexy because if you can do it with a barrier, you can probably do just about anything.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So then
Intercastile,
yep, from Blood and Ash. So number 2 is making sure that she comes first and perhaps more than once.
Ooh.
So men, listen up. This is something you need to hear. Female orgasms make the clit more sensitive, which is why multiple orgasms are a thing.
Yes.
And they do happen. The more times a woman orgasms, the more spectacular her orgasms get. So,
Which means that's spectacular for you.
Yeah.
Right. So she's going to be a giver after that. I'm just saying. So if you are stopping at a one and done, you're doing your woman and yourself a pretty big disservice. I have to say.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah. And then speaking of orgasms, I really love it in books when the male cleans up the mess really sweetly afterwards.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is in real life too. Get us a towel. We did not make that mess. You did. And there's nothing worse than sprinting to the bathroom to try to make sure stuff isn't running down your legs.
Yes.
It's not sexy. It's not cute.
That's a nay, for sure.
A nay. So just, it's really sweet when a guy cleans a lady up, or at least brings her a towel. So these are life lessons as well as things what I like in books. So
yeah,
what are yours?
True.
What are yours, Whitney?
I actually have 3 also. I didn't do that on purpose. The tension leading up to the actual spice is a big yay for me. I like the slow burn a lot.
When you say slow burn, though, you mean like they've done other stuff? Or no?
Not even necessarily. It just depends on the writer. I think I have read some books where there's really good tension where they literally don't do anything, but maybe like touch fingertips in passing or something.
Pride
like
and Prejudice.
Yeah. Well, like we talked about maybe the first or second episode for Crescent City, Earth and Blood, where Bryce puts her like leg up against Hunt's leg, and I was like, and that's like nothing, right? They're not doing anything. It just depends on the writer. But any kind of tension, it could be doing something, it could be doing nothing, but just having that tension. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of that. I'm having a hard time like looking at you guys while we're talking about this.
I said clit and towel and multiple orgasms, and I looked you in the eye the whole time. Like,
wait till you get to mine.
No, I can't. I won't be able
Look
to.
me in the eye.
I won't be
Look
able
at me.
to.
Hey,
so
eyes
anyway,
up here.
That's my first one is tension. The second one is similar to you, Deb, the generous partner. A generous partner who is all about giving pleasure to their love interest. I like that. It's nice. I think it's that whole thing of like, it makes you feel sexier to know that somebody is super into you, right? And I guess that's where that comes from for me. And then number 3 is just a simple good girl. I like it.
That was one of mine too.
I almost put praise kink.
I like it. Yeah. I love it.
Tell me I'm doing
Want
more
of it. Those are my yays. Mindy,
but you know what?
I can't wait to hear yours.
We didn't know until we got into the Bookstagram community that we liked that.
Exactly.
Right? I remember I read
No
it the
kidding.
first time and I was like, wait, what?
Excuse me?
So
say it again.
The book I'm reading right now, Puck Packed by Kristen Granada. Oh gosh, she doesn't want me to tell. Okay, so in the book there is a toddler. I'm not going to say whose it is or whatever, but
this conversation is taking a turn.
No. It reminds me of your story about Annabelle. She says, so like they're eating dinner and he's like, oh, you're such a good girl. You ate all your broccoli. And she goes, well, so-and-so ate her broccoli. So why don't you tell her she's a good girl? And she leans back and she said, yeah, Daddy, tell me I'm a good girl.
Oh my gosh. I will say though, I don't call anyone Daddy.
No.
Daddy.
Yeah. Daddy.
Yeah. So yes, that was on my list. And it's shocker, I have 5. So they're short. So good girl was on my list. I think consent is super sexy. And just a guy asking, is this okay? And then moving on to the next step. Are you good with this? I think that's.
I need to hear you say it, princess.
So sexy.
While I do like that, I'm also like, okay, shut up.
You're wasting time.
Well, sometimes they do it with just a look. Like, look at her and, is this good?
Women can't even look at us right now, so.
You do not have my consent for this conversation.
So moving on to the dirtier ones. I love a good shower masturbation scene, or really any shower sex. I don't know. It does it for me.
Any masturbation scene, because it shows how much they're into each other.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Especially if it's like a mutual. I like a FaceTime mutual masturbation too. Yeah.
Like in pecking around?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I like. I'm also a fan of the public finger bang.
If it's in public, is it automatically a finger bang?
I mean, I don't think so. I think you can finger bang somebody not in public.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
What I think about the public place, I think there's just something about it like being hidden from prying eyes. There's just something about that taboo of it all. I don't know. That just.
If he's doing it right, you can't hide that.
It just that automatically makes me think of the scene in Wedding Crashers where she's like giving him a hand job under the table with the whole family. Anyway, that's
it reminds me of. Have you seen there's going around on reels and stuff like wives or girlfriends will send their husband or boyfriend a sexy text while they're at like dinner with their family.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. But anyway, yeah.
See, I would do that, and Robbie would like not get it. Like, he would not feel his watch buzz. He wouldn't look at it. Well, he would see it later.
His mom would see it, and she'd see it pop up.
Darren doesn't care. He'd be like, "All right, baby,
we'll be back.
Yeah, see you later."
Brian can't hide stuff. He'd jump up and he'd be like, "We have to go talk for 5 minutes, maybe 10."
But my number one
10 if she's lucky.
my number one yay is a dirty talker. The filthier the better. I love a dirty talking male main character. I don't know.
Whitney, you are having so much trouble with this.
I'm making sure to make eye contact with Whitney every time I say something.
You're prolonging the eye contact.
Well, don't worry, because my nay is going to turn you right off.
Well, so are mine.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay, so my nay is putting weapons into the hoo-ha.
Ugh.
I just can't do it. There's some books I read with that, and I'm like, what if the gun goes off?
Yeah.
Like, there's one with a gun. There's one where a guy uses like the handle of a knife, and I'm like, what if the knife slips?
Oh my gosh.
I'm just far too anxious.
DIY episiotomy.
Oh, don't look me in the eye and say that.
That was one of mine too.
Christ.
Was I said no gunplay, please?
Yeah, no
I thought you were
gunplay.
going to say episiotomy.
Yeah,
That's a definite no.
That's a huge turn off. I might like the pregnancy trope, okay, but no episiotomies, please.
If you've not had children, don't look it up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you have had children, you know what it is. So we did poll the Our Nerdiest Thing channel, which you can join at the top of our Instagram page. So we asked, what are your thoughts on dark romance writers putting weird stuff in the vajayjay? Okay, so 54% of you said that maybe we should just put nice things up there. 27% of you said it doesn't bother you because there's no UTIs or yeast infections in romance. 12% asked for the book Rex with those scenes. And 7% of you just said no thanks.
Yeah. I think I said no thanks.
Yeah. So we also asked our channel friends what ruins a spicy scene for them, and here were some of the answers. Rimming. Using the term bouncing when a woman's on top. That sounds like that would hurt, for the record. Trying to preserve one's seed.
Ooh.
And on that note, hot cum. And finally, any weird phrases for the backdoor stuff, like pleated folds. Yeah, I don't mind the backdoor stuff. I think especially Emily Rath makes it sound kind of great sometimes. But you don't need to tell me what it's called back there.
Or what it looks like.
Right, yeah. I don't need that. Don't tell me like balloon fissure or like
Balloon fissure.
I feel like some authors try to get like really like, you need to know what this looks like. I'm like, we all know what an asshole looks like.
Yeah, like no thanks.
Yeah, we don't tell us. So
No.
yeah, so no weapon play for me. That's a no-go.
Yeah, that made me feel a lot of feelings.
Hopefully not good ones. But here's the thing I want to say too. If you like that, that's completely fine.
Yeah.
We're not shaming
This is our
anyone.
opinion.
Yeah. I honestly, like, believe me, and there was one scene where I was like, all right, it was more of what he was saying to her.
Yeah.
Right. But for me and my anxiety level, that just does not work for me. So, but if it
No.
does for you, no shame whatsoever. We're not kink shaming anyone.
Well, I mean, and on that note, one of mine is I'm not a particular fan of closed door fade to black, but that's really just my personal opinion. And I mean, I know some people love that, and that is totally okay.
So Lorcan did.
Yeah, no thanks.
No.
I want to know exactly what Lorcan did.
Yeah. Give me every single detail.
I feel like she wrote that, and then they were like, she was going to go back and fix it, and then the publisher was like, dude, Sarah, this book is 986 pages.
I would have read 1,000 more pages
Yes, I
if it
would
was
have.
about what Lorcan did.
She could publish just that chapter, and people would pay $50
Probably.
for it.
At least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At least $50. What else are your nays?
So I talked about the gunplay. We talked a little bit about ass play, and I don't like it when somebody licks the asshole. That is just ew.
Poo-poo comes out of it.
No thanks. No thanks. No thanks. And you mentioned that was me that said I don't like when they say the girl bounced on his junk. It's not a trampoline, honey. Oh my gosh. I just have a couple more though.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I at first did not like choking at all, but now I kind of like choking, a little light choking.
I feel like I can't even try to guess what the next thing you're going to say is.
So I just was going to say I'm not a fan of aggressive choking.
Yeah, I
like a
don't
non-consensual.
Aggressive? Yeah, no.
I don't mind a hand necklace.
No, me
like
either.
holding someone in place, like consensually.
Yes.
But don't like cut off my air supply.
Well, and it's funny because I've come around to that. Like, I really did not like it at all. And now the more books I read with it, I'm like,
You've
okay,
convinced me.
You may have to cut this. Actually, don't cut
You know
this
what?
out.
Though?
He doesn't
It's
care.
about trust.
Right. And I actually asked Darren, I was like, would you want to try a little hand necklace? And he's like not comfortable with it. And I'm like, oh, we'll work up to that.
If this camper's rocking, don't come knocking. If you hear some someone coughing. It's not weed.
All right, fine. I do have one more, and I'm not going to look at you when I say it.
Look at me.
So I don't like the word pre-cum. I don't like that. I don't know why. And I actually messaged Lara Buckheit because I wanted to tell her that I appreciated the fact that she didn't use that word, because she actually described it without saying the word pre-cum. And it made it it just made it so much sexier. She actually, what she says is, my tongue flicks against his top, lapping up the beads pooling there.
Okay.
Better. But look, doesn't that sound better than I licked his pre-cum?
That's a show don't tell situation.
Yeah, that is for sure. I do like that in books though, because it shows like that he's like excited.
I know, but just pre-cum.
Guys are gross.
Yeah.
It sounds like undignified is what it sounds like. Lick my pre-cum.
It's very frat boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at it. It's on the tip. Did you say what your nays are yet?
No.
I haven't.
Okay, look
at
at
the
it.
other when you tell him.
Whitney, eyes on me.
I really only have two big ones. So one of mine is weird names for body parts, and I gave a couple of examples. So like slick folds, but like wet folds. I just read that in a book recently, and I was like, I would much rather you say slick folds than wet folds.
Is
like
what the towel is after you clean me up.
Yeah,
I guess it's better than waist folds.
And then I cannot remember. I didn't write down what book this was from, but I want to say it was one of the Tessa Bailey books, which hurts my feelings a little bit. But the phrase velvet helmet was used. And I immediately made a note of it.
I'm picturing when Joey Tribbiani is trying to pretend that he's circumcised.
Yes. All the different hats.
There's like the mink one.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I read the words velvet helmet and thought, oh my God. Nope. So there's that. And the other one, this might be controversial, but again, this is just my opinion. A big no for me is butt stuff. Just in general. It's in like every single romance book right now.
It is a lot.
I would really appreciate to see myself represented. And just have one character be like, hey, no. They're like, oh, that feels so amazing. Oh, I'm orgasming immediately. Like everyone in the world likes that when they're not expecting their partner to do it. And I'm like, there's not one single character in any of these worlds.
I've read a few, actually.
I haven't. See, and I'm
you need
like,
to read Pucked by Helena Hunting because she calls it Area 51.
I will say, any of the books I've read with it, it's always been very like, I'm gonna prepare you for this, and we're gonna like.
They don't just slip it in.
Oh, I've read some where especially the girl does it to the guy, and it's very much the guy like, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen.
Well,
I would never have guessed.
Also have a prostate.
Well, and I don't. Right. So there's that.
I think,
but yeah, I don't like it. I don't like that it seems to be in every single romance book that I read, and I would I would genuinely like to read a scene of an awkward and I guess that this isn't sexy, but an awkward I tried this and I really didn't like it. Please never do that to me again. You know what I mean?
That's not a HEA.
I know, and that's not fun. But anyway, that's a big no for Whitney.
Is closed for construction.
Yeah, keep your velvet helmet away.
From your pleated fold.
my pleated rim. Yes, thank you so much.
My brown-eyed Twinkie.
Oh my gosh, we are so immature and fun.
Butthole. I'd rather you say butthole than pleated fold.
Yes,
100%. Yeah.
My asshole.
So let's move on to our opinion of the number one panty dropping move by a book boyfriend.
Okay, I'm going to say or girlfriend.
Or girlfriend, sure.
Book boyfriend or girlfriend.
Book interest. Love
interest.
Sexual being.
Mine is I bet you taste amazing.
Oh.
And it
escalated quickly.
It doesn't matter who says it, man or woman, because Kristen Granada, speaking of hers, has that in one of her books, From Woman to Woman. And I just think that is so hot because that is such an intimate act, right? Mm-hmm. And people, men in particular, that don't like to do it, they just don't know how to do it. If they knew how to do it, they would like doing it. And I think that is like a very high compliment.
Tough words.
Yeah.
Tough but fair.
Tough but fair.
If you don't like to do it, that means you're bad at it.
I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Okay.
That's why I said tough but fair.
So, men, if you're our 1% of men listeners, I hope you're learning some shit.
They're taking notes.
Yeah. No, they're like, that's not true.
What about you, Mindy?
I think you'll agree with me on mine, actually.
Butts.
No, not butts. I'm calling mine the prowl. So it's like, that moment when they realize they want each other, that tension finally comes to a head, which sounds, yeah. And there's just so much of that tension that the guy, one hand takes off his shirt and prowls hungrily to her, and they like devour each other, like kiss each other, like that just yes, right, like that tension explosion.
You like the tension, yeah,
yes,
exactly.
It makes my lady parts ignite.
This girl is on fire.
Oh, congratulations,
Whitney. Eyes on me. Tell me what yours is.
I actually had a really hard time choosing something for like one specific move. But in general, I do like a dominating move in a moment, kind of similar to what you're saying, in a moment of like, I need you right this second, like right now. And in Fangirl Down, which is Tessa Bailey, they have, I think it's in Fangirl Down, they are on the golf course and like have to have each other right that second.
They do it in like a weather shelter.
Yes, it's like a thunder shelter, a lightning shelter.
Finger bang?
They do it all, girl.
Yeah,
they do it all. But I'm pretty sure that in that scene, that I'm thinking of the same scene as opposed to putting two together. But I'm pretty sure she doesn't even take her panties off. It's like, just shove them aside. I need you right this second. Like, that would take too long. That is a move that I like.
Yeah, I like that too.
Me too.
That's very nice. I wrote hot in all caps. So those are things that we like and a few things that we don't like. So let's talk about books recommendations.
So I will say I'm going to keep the Tessa Bailey train going.
Mm-hmm.
So because if you want to start reading spice, I think that she is a really good person to start with. Mm-hmm. And there's two main reasons for me. She always promotes consent. Even if it's nonverbal, always consensual. And she normalizes normal things like masturbation. So there's a lot of like partner masturbation in her books. And I really, really like it because people do those things. People do masturbate solo, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for her, as someone who's this kind of like rom-com author, it's kind of cool that she does something that I think that people still think is kind of like
taboo.
Risky.
Yeah, I know.
Which is stupid.
That's so dumb.
And then for paranormal books, I would say that you could start with J.R. Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood series. So if you really like, you're not a rom-com person, you could start with hers because there's a lot of great world building in those too.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody recently about Tessa Bailey books, and I said she's got very descriptive sex scenes. And I said, what kind of books do you read? And she was like, I read Colleen Hoover. And I was like, okay, well, Tessa Bailey's going to be more descriptive, right? It's going to be leveled up. And she was like, oh my. And so I actually put Colleen Hoover but only two books in particular. Not all of them.
It starts with us.
It starts with us and it ends with us.
Because Atlas,
oh my gosh, yes. And it's spicy, but it's not really that. It's not super descriptive.
I would call it steamy.
Yes, I would too. Yeah, steamy is a good description. And I have ACOTAR in there too, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Up until Silver Flames, it is more steam.
Yeah.
Except for the eyelid kissing. Don't do that. Or fiddle playing.
Oh my gosh, don't play a fiddle. But if you start with book one, that is the least amount of spice. And as you go in that
series, it'll build you up to it.
Yes, it builds up to it. If you have never read any kind of steam or spice before, I would start with something in that vein and work your way up to Tessa Bailey. Because if you go from zero to Tessa Bailey, in my neck of the woods, talk about pearl clutching. My gosh, people would probably light the books on fire.
Yeah, I will say though, like if you are comfortable in your sexuality,
that's true.
Yeah, Colleen Hoover's going to be a little too mute for you.
Yes,
yeah.
my neck of the woods.
You're not comfortable in your sexuality.
Well, my neck of the woods is generally not.
You're a newer spice reader, I think, than Mindy and I are.
Well, and I'm in a very more conservative group, like the parents at my kid's school and stuff, you know, it is going to be more people who aren't super comfortable in their sexuality. Yeah. But I tell you what, you read some Tessa Bailey, you're going to get more comfortable.
I think part of that too comes with, like, if you are a parent, I think you get more comfortable with your sexuality when they get older. Because it's easier to be a sexual being when
that
your
is
kids
true.
are older.
That is true. That's a good point.
Well, I also, it's so funny. It's a testament to that fact that you just were talking about, because I also put Tessa Bailey's books as great starter spice books. And really, mostly it's because I definitely think they're spicy. It's not that they're not spicy, but it's a good balance with the rom-com.
But
there's also nothing that you're going to be like, oh, that's taboo, or like,
right.
Or I mean, masturbation, if you do think that's taboo, but like, there's not going to be any gunplay or anything like that.
There's no vegetable play.
It's going to be like assholes and
typical consensual sex.
Yeah.
I do think there's a scene. I can't remember which one it is, but there is a scene.
There's an asshole licking?
Yeah, but it was in a shower.
It's Fangirl Down.
Is it Fangirl Down? Okay, I couldn't remember. They're all bleeding together in my head.
I'll pretend like.
But it was it was in the shower, and she was like, "I'm gonna get you all
maybe that'll
clean."
like balance it, because I love shower scenes, but I don't know. I still can't. Yeah, no. I think this one actually is a little bit more of a starter spice than even Tessa
more
Bailey.
Steam.
Yeah, it's Julie Olivia, and she has some really wonderful spicy books that aren't too gratuitous or spice heavy. There's a few scenes in there, and they're very, I don't want to say they're short, because they're not too short. I think they're just descriptive enough that you get that sense of, like, you know, the butterflies in your stomach, and you're like, ooh, that's sexy, or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're not like over the top or trying to, you know, prove something or whatever. And so the two that I read by her are the Honeywood series, which is a series of, they're all set in a little podunk amusement park. And then the Never Harbor series, which is her new one, which are Peter Pan retellings.
Oh, cool.
And they're just really good. I would say, like,
if you're getting fingered on a Ferris wheel, that is a finger bang. I gotta say.
The first one I read, it was
don't say bumper cars.
No, it was in the dark ride.
Oh, like the Tunnel of Love
or whatever. Yeah. But it wasn't.
What do they expect to happen if it's named that?
Yeah, exactly. They're just asking you to. Yeah. So what about books? Best books with spicy scenes?
I've got 4, and I'll kind of go from, if maybe you don't read much spice, to you do like spice. Okay, and you're open to like okay. So if you want to start light, you could read any of the STEM books by Allie Hazelwood, but my favorite one is Love Hypothesis. I really, really like that one. And she writes really hot nerds. Really hot nerds.
Some of us are quite hot.
Yeah, right? My second one is Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. There is a slow burn, like falling in love in this book, and there is a cave scene that is exquisite. One of my favorites.
And that is a book too, so make sure you read book 1.
My third one is King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. And the reason I like this one so much is that the female main character is extremely sex positive and knows exactly what she wants.
Yeah, I think
that's really awesome.
Yeah.
It's a good example for how women should feel in the bedroom. And then finally, The Saint by Sierra Simone is a great book to read if you are interested in books. But you do need to read the previous 2 books in the series first, which are The Priest and The Sinner. They're all really, really good. And I think it hasn't been announced yet, but she's going to be somewhere we're going to be next year, and I'm so freaking excited. Yeah. Yay. So yeah. What are yours?
Tessa Bailey. Just all of them.
This is a Tessa Bailey Stan episode.
Yeah, apparently. So every episode for me has been this season. I also have The Idea of You by Robin Lee, which I just found out is a movie. I didn't know that until like our last book club meeting a couple of weeks ago. So I can't speak to the movie at all. But
it's not out yet. I think it comes out in April.
But the book is really, really good. It's got some really, really good spice scenes, but it's also not just spice. So I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed that book when I read it last year. And then Pucking Wild by Emily Rath. Pucking Around is book 1 and it's also really good. Pucking Wild is just more my speed personally. And I liked it a lot. There is some butt stuff, though. Trigger warning.
In the dedication, she says something like, and if you haven't, try pegging.
Yeah. Right. And then last but not least, one of my favorite spicy books of all time, the series, The Bonds That Tie by Jay Bree. It's got some good slow burn, kind of enemies to lovers, really good plot, really a good story, but just really good chemistry with the characters. It's good. I love it. Good spice. Read it.
Griffin or North?
Griffin.
Atlas.
Yeah, Griffin.
How dare you?
Yeah.
How could you even ask me that?
I feel like we all have different ones.
Yeah.
That is one series where I will say this till the day I die. I am disappointed that Atlas and Dave never got together.
Yeah.
They were like so cuddly and stuff.
I know.
Maybe one day she'll release a holiday special.
I hope so. And for Christmas, he gets that dick.
What about you, Mindy?
Well, mine are probably all going to sound like a broken record, too. For really good spice, I would go to Thea Claire's Go Find Less. It's also got like a nerdy MMC and then like a sex positive, body positive female main character. If you want... So for me, the top notch is the Pucked series by Helena Hunting. There's so much spice without taking away from the plot. And she's just so good at like... Some of them are actually really funny. Like, you know, she's the queen of the awkward sex moment, and then she makes it sexy somehow. I don't know. There's just something about Helena Hunting's writing that just turns me on. And then finally, if you want adventurous spice where anything goes, then Emily Rath is your girl.
Yeah.
Anything pucking.
That's a really good way to describe it. Adventurous
around,
spice.
Pucking Wild. She's got a new one coming out, Pucking Sweet. And then she's got Whiskey and Sin, which is an Omega-verse. And then she's got her whole Regency series as well. And they're all just super spicy and, you know, every combination you can imagine.
She does write really good spicy scenes.
So, those are my go-tos.
There's only been one where I had to kind of sketch out a diagram because I didn't. I was like, oh, that's it. It was like, who's where, what now?
Yeah. Well, and last on our recommendations, books that we recommend without spice.
Whitney, what are yours?
I have a few. So I have the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black, which is a YA. It's got tension and it's got romance, but it just is not, it doesn't have spice,
I would say there's probably one scene that if your kid is maybe like under 13.
Yeah, under 13, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just one of my favorite series ever. And I actually wrote down, this might be controversial to say that it's like not spicy, but I actually
can't say The Bonds That Tie.
No, I said Crescent City because really it's not that spicy. There are not very many
until it happens.
Scenes. Well, but even then there's not that much. Although maybe it's been a while since I read book 2.
I will say in book 2 they're fucking.
Yeah. I mean
it's book 1 has like tension and steam.
Book 1 for sure.
Soon.
And I would say book 1 for sure is low spice.
I will say book 3 because I have finished that. There's like 1.5 scenes.
Right. It's not overall. It is not that
percentage wise.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So
compared to ACOTAR books, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Or
nothing.
The Bonds That Tie.
Yeah. Well, especially The Bonds That Tie. My gosh. And we just talked with Kay Gately last week and talked about her trilogy earlier in this episode. But the Lost Wells trilogy by Kate, we talked about this with her in our interview last week. It is steamy, is how she describes it. There is sex in it, but it's not super graphic. It's not super long. The scenes themselves are not very long. And we talked about this with her, but I mean, she uses the term vulva and not like slick folds, right? Like she's not trying to be titillating.
She's very academic.
It's a couple that's been together for a really long time, and it's more about like them connecting and not so much like I have to have your body right now, even though they do feel that way about each other.
My connection is an orgasm.
Yeah, well, they're getting those. Let me tell you. And then last but not least, another friend of the podcast, Morgan Gaucher, A Song of Shadow and Starlight, and she has book 2 coming out called A Ballad of Beast and Brothers. That's more steamy than spicy. Book 2 has actual spice scenes and book 1 does not. It's a lot of tension, but it's still not that much spice, right? So highly recommend those.
So I have 3 recommendations that are still have like a love angle, right? There's a love story in them, but they're either closed door or like nothing really happens. So my first one is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. There's tons of angst in that series, but one time there's an allusion to sex, and that's really it. It's a lot more about like, we can't get our shit together to get together type of thing. The second one is Shatter Me by, and I'm so sorry, I'm not sure I know how to pronounce this, Terry Maffei. Especially in the first couple. Towards the end, there's like one scene, but it's pretty closed door. But Shatter Me is also a very unique series to read, but I can't really tell you why. And then The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. There's a lot of suggestions of sex in that book, but there's nothing ever open door, and it's really actually beautifully written.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
It's one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, it's really good. What about you, Min?
I'm actually going to go to Jay Bree, which is kind of funny. She's got her new series, The Crown of Oaths and Curses. It's called the Mortal Fate series. There are a couple of novellas that introduce the characters, but this book, The Crown of Oaths and Curses, is the first in the series. And there really isn't any spice in this book, but it's Jay Bree. So I can't guarantee that there won't be any in her later books.
The next one will have some.
Well, because they're fated mates. And so like this one's the lead up. So, I don't know if you want to like get started and if it hooks you, maybe you'll be okay with the spice. But yeah, I figured later on in the series that she would definitely heat it up. And then the other book that I really love, and it's got some trigger warnings, I'll tell you that. But it's called Beartown by Frederick Bachman. It's a small town that has high hopes for its rising junior hockey team, but it's rocked by a scandal that has implications that affect the whole town. And it is a trilogy. The other books are called Us Against You and The Winners. And there is a sexual aspect to it, but it's not something that's like gratuitous on the page sex stuff.
My husband loved Beartown.
It's a fantastic book. It's not something that you're going to read at all for spice, but it'll make you think.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we definitely like to read romance. We like to read spice, and we like to talk about it with you.
Except maybe Whitney.
As long as
Whitney doesn't. As long as you don't look Whitney in the eye.
Yeah,
I can take it in small doses. But that brings us to our nerdiest things of the week. Who wants to go first?
Why don't you go?
Well, okay. This just happened yesterday, but it was pretty funny. So I finished an arc that I'll be talking about in the coming weeks as it gets closer to the release day from a friend of the podcast, Elle Mitchell. And she writes really good, emotional books. And this arc that I finished, I mean, sobbing. I was sobbing. And to the point where my husband was like, what is wrong? Like he thought that somebody had died or something. Like it was bad. So anyway, he's getting dinner ready. I have finished this book and I'm trying to like compose myself so I don't scare my kids. And so I, wipe my face, whatever, go have dinner. I mean, 2 hours later, this is hours later, that I look in the mirror and I have little pieces of toilet paper stuck in the corners of my eyes and all down my both cheeks, like a line of little pieces of toilet paper. And I'm like, hello, I sat through dinner, sat and talked to you guys. No one said anything to me about the fact that I had toilet paper.
10-year-old wasn't like, what's on your face?
Yeah, he was like, I saw that and I thought it was just your face. I was
You're not that pale, Whitney.
I know, right? So anyway, I ended up, before I wiped it all off, I took a video of it and sent it to Elle. I was like, look what you did.
You're not even sorry.
Yeah, I was like, your book did this. But anyway, that was pretty funny and also made me feel, like that is the nerdiest thing.
That's really sweet, though. Her books have done that to me.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's yours, Mindy?
Well, mine is, I've got Wild and Windy coming up in Chicago, and I just went a little crazy on pre-orders. And by a little, I mean a lot. Like, I just have decided that I'm going to, buy something from everybody, apparently.
You have to sell that RV.
I did it less than
It's so bad. Like, so bad. But, like, I'm pre-ordering, so it's like, I'm sure I'll get there and I'll buy as much there as I did before.
Yeah.
It's the pre-orders, you can spread them out.
I know,
So
right? That's what I've been doing.
It's less
too.
money that way.
Yeah.
It is.
That's
It
what I've
definitely
done
is.
for,
But like,
Readers
it's
Take
so
Denver.
bad because I'm like, oh, that looks good, and I don't want to just buy the first one. I got to buy the whole damn series. So there's like, that's like 3 to 10 books. Like,
Yeah.
so
Whoops, my wallet fell.
oopsie.
Sorry.
So yeah, that's my nerdy thing. I've definitely gone a little overboard on pre-orders.
Yeah.
So,
Enjoy it. Live it up, girl.
That's right.
I am gonna try. I don't have anywhere to put them when I bring them home, but
I know you turned
Put it in the RV.
You turned down a Diana Gabaldon book. You're like, I don't have room for that on my bookshelf. I'm like, you need more bookshelves.
I definitely do.
Yeah. So mine was, I told you all that I took my husband to Atlanta for the PX concert, and I had gotten us balcony seats. And part of the reason I do that is because I'm so tiny. If I'm down on the floor, I can't see anything. But my husband, he really loves to be down in like the pit, and he loves to be around people. So I was like, this is your birthday present. Go down there. Don't come back up here. I'm fine. So I was on the back row, and I just opened my Kindle up and started reading Lara Buckheit's Ark.
I love that. I totally love that.
I'm literally like bopping my head to these songs, and every once in a while I'll look up and I'll be like, this song's amazing. And then I'm like, and then the vampire.
Anyway.
I sent it to Laura, and she told me she screamed out loud and showed it to her husband.
Aww.
I was like,
that's
pretty nerdy. But it was really fun because I had like a band I really liked in the background, and I was reading a book I really liked.
Yeah.
It was fun.
It's like a theme track, soundtrack for your life.
Yeah, it was.
That's nice.
I love that.
But with hardcore punk.
And vampires.
And vampires, yeah. Well, that is it for today's episode. Join us this Thursday. We are finishing our discussion of Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood. And we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing, or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.